It is Wednesday, the 17th of April, 2019.
Welcome to the Personal Computer Show. I'm Hank Key and my colleague is Joe King. Do you know who has your personal data? Do you know how Facebook, Google, and Amazon are using your personal data? Is that product you bought from Amazon a counterfeit? You should find out. Our website is pcradioshow.org. We can be heard each Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on prn.fm, streaming on the internet as well as on various podcasting hosting sites. Podcasts of the program is available on prn.fm, on the internet, and pcradioshow.org. To listen to the live program on the telephone each Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, the number is 641-793-7091. For those who are listening to the program on demand, you can leave us a message with your question or comment to hank@pcradioshow.org. You can also reach us on the Google number 862-800-6805. That's 862-800-6805. And you start your message with the Personal Computer Show, followed by your message. The case against Julian Assange. U.S. prosecutors unsealed conspiracy charges against WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, alleging he worked with former Army intelligence analyst turned whistleblower Chelsea Manning to hack a government computer and carry out one of the largest leaks of U.S. classified information in history. In an indictment dated March 6, 2018, the United States charges Assange with one count of conspiracy to commit computer intrusion. The charge in the one-count indictment against Julian Assange, unsealed shortly after his arrest, doesn't speak to any broader First Amendment issues. The indictment alleges that in March 2010, Assange engaged in a conspiracy with Chelsea Manning, a former intelligence analyst in the U.S. Army, to assist Manning in cracking a password stored on U.S. Department of Defense computers connected to the Secret Internet Protocol Network, a U.S. government network used for classified documents and communications. Conspiracy to commit computer intrusion, which violates the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, is a more easily provable crime in what could be a larger criminal context. The conspiracy component of it can be pretty easy to prove that there had to be some degree of coordination of efforts and action. You can at least demonstrate through email and other communications that they were working in some degree in concert to produce an outcome. Limiting the indictment against Assange to this one narrow charge and not charging him with espionage leaves aside any First Amendment questions that could have been raised about WikiLeaks publishing classified information. How does this differ from the Pentagon Papers published by the New York Times in 1971? This indictment does not charge Assange with a crime related to the publication of the material. If a journalist has sources offering classified documents, the journalist can publish those documents, and this indictment against Assange has no bearing on that. But if a source tells a journalist that there are documents behind a locked door, and the journalist offers to help pick the lock, that's when it becomes a crime. The U.S. indictment against Assange stems from WikiLeaks' publication in 2010 and 2011 of hundreds of thousands of U.S. military reports about the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, as well as American diplomatic communications. The material was originally leaked to WikiLeaks by former Army analyst Chelsea Manning. The indictment includes only one count of conspiracy to hack a computer to disclose classified information that can be used to injure the United States. According to the indictment, Assange conspired with Manning by helping her crack a Defense Department computer password in March 2010 that provided access to a U.S. government network that stored classified information and communications. The Department of Justice announcement came just hours after Ecuador's government revoked Assange's political asylum. British police then forcibly removed the Australian computer hacker from the Ecuadorian embassy in London, where Assange fled in 2012 after Swedish law enforcement pursued him for allegedly raping female WikiLeaks volunteers. Ecuador's President Lenin Moreno released a video statement on Assange indicating the move had been planned for some time. Ecuador's foreign minister had publicly warned Assange that he could not stay at the London embassy indefinitely. Moreno called Assange a miserable hacker and a spoiled brat who didn't pick up after himself. Moreno had accused Assange and WikiLeaks of spying on him and spreading false corruption stories to destabilize Ecuador. Why Assange was initially arrested? Manning had already supplied Assange and WikiLeaks with other classified U.S. information she had access to as an Army analyst. Manning went on to transmit all the material to WikiLeaks, which published a massive trove in a series of posts between 2010 and 2011. Manning was convicted by court-martial on violation of the Espionage Act and other charges in 2013. She was later sentenced to 35 years in prison. In January 2017, just days before leaving office, President Barack Obama commuted all but 4 months of Manning's remaining sentence. But Manning was jailed for contempt of court last month after refusing to testify about Assange in the ongoing U.S. grand jury investigation into WikiLeaks. Separate from the Manning leaks, the U.S. government has been investigating WikiLeaks' role in the Russian government efforts to interfere in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. WikiLeaks published a trove of embarrassing and politically damaging hacked emails from then-presidential candidate Hillary Clinton, Chief of Staff John Podesta, and others on July the 22nd, 2016, on the first day of the Democratic National Convention. Prosecutors in Sweden are also considering reopening an investigation into sexual assault allegations against Julian Assange, who was arrested in London's Ecuadorian embassy after a 7-year standoff. Sweden's Deputy Chief Prosecutor Eva Moran Persson said in a statement that her office had received a request to resume a rape probe into Assange from the alleged victim. The case was dropped in 2017 because Assange's residency in the Ecuadorian embassy stymied the investigation. Assange has always denied the rape allegation. Separate allegations of sexual assault by Assange made by a second Swedish woman were discontinued by authorities in 2015 after the statute of limitations expired. Assange sought refuge in the embassy in 2012 after he was released on bail in Britain while facing extradition to Sweden in connection with both sets of allegations. Australia's Prime Minister said Friday that any extradition plans had nothing to do with Australia and that Assange would not get any special treatment from its consular officials. He said Assange would have to make his way through whatever comes his way in terms of the justice system in foreign jurisdictions. Australia's foreign minister said Britain had sought assurances from the United States that Assange would not be exposed to the death penalty if he was extradited. The computer hacking charge that Assange faces in the United States carries up to 5 years in prison. Ecuador granted him asylum in its embassy because Assange feared if he left the compound, he faced a separate risk of being arrested and extradited to the United States for publishing classified military and diplomatic cables and images through WikiLeaks. Assange lawyer Jennifer Robinson said that Assange arrest was a free speech issue and that any extradition to the United States sets a dangerous precedent for all media, organizations, and journalists. The single-count indictment does not charge Assange with a crime related to the publication of material. From my point of view, it's not a direct threat to the press. So what's next for Assange? A lawyer for Assange said he would fight extradition to the United States, and he is set to appear in a London court May 2nd via video link from prison in relation to the extradition case. Late-breaking news. Apple and Qualcomm have settled a royalty and patent dispute that went to trial this week in San Diego. As part of the settlement, all legal action worldwide between the two companies will be dropped, and Apple will buy Qualcomm chips again. Apple and Qualcomm have settled a royalty dispute, the companies announced in a press release. The settlement includes a payment from Apple to Qualcomm as well as a chipset supply agreement suggesting that Apple will buy Qualcomm chips for future iPhones. The companies did not say how much the payment will be. Ultimately, the two companies realized this was more about two kids fighting in the sandbox, and they have bigger issues ahead with 5G and iPhone softness rather than battling in court. The two companies started proceeding in a trial in federal court in San Diego on Monday, which was expected to last until May. Both sides were asking for billions in damages. The antitrust case was originally filed by Apple in early 2017. The complicated legal battle centered around modem chips and related disputes and have been raging in courts around the world for the past 2 years, including an earlier trial between Qualcomm and the U.S. Federal Trade Commission. For years, Apple bought modem chips from Qualcomm, but it resisted under Qualcomm's prices and requirements that any company using its chip would also pay licensing fees for its patents. Apple argued that Qualcomm was abusing its position as one of the only suppliers for cellular technology, and Qualcomm contended that Apple was withholding payments that the two companies had hammered out as part of a royalty agreement. According to Qualcomm, the new license between the two companies is 6 years with a 2-year option to extend it. It includes a one-time payment from Apple to Qualcomm. The amount of the payment was not disclosed. In November, Qualcomm said that they believed that the two companies were on the doorsteps to settling. Apple CEO Tim Cook contradicted shortly after saying that Apple hasn't been in settlement discussions since the third calendar quarter of 2018. New iPhone models released in 2018 use Intel modem chips instead of Qualcomm's technology. Analysts had previously said that the dispute between Qualcomm and Apple could slow down Apple's plans to support next-generation 5G networks. Qualcomm is one of the top suppliers of the chips that can connect to 5G networks. The agreement opens up the possibility that Apple could release a 5G phone sooner than expected with Qualcomm's modern technology. A major medical achievement was announced this past week. A 3D printer creates an entire human heart. At any given time, there are about 3,000 people in the United States waiting for heart transplants, and some people die while waiting for a transplant. Heart transplants have become more and more common since they were first performed in 1967. There are roughly 5,000 heart transplants performed worldwide each year, and about 2,000 are performed in the United States alone. Today, there are at least 3,100 people waiting for heart transplant in the United States. Who is considered for heart transplant? Heart transplantation is considered a last resort when a person has reached end-stage heart failure that does not respond to any other therapies, medicines, mechanical devices, and surgery. The patient must also be likely to die without a transplant. As sick as the patient must be to experience such heart failure, he or she must be otherwise healthy to be considered. Because of the limited number of organs available, patients in need of a transplant are put on the national waiting list, but they are not listed in any particular order, and being first on the list will not necessarily give a person priority. A patient can be removed from the list at any time if he or she starts to recover or suffers another devastating medical event. Once a heart is found, it is given to the best possible match based on blood type, body size, and medical condition. A patient who makes it onto the waiting list may have to wait for several months for a heart, and unfortunately, many will die before a suitable donor can be found. The amount of time spent on the waiting list varies, but the average wait time is 6 months to 1 year. Hearts come from designated organ donors who have recently died or become brain dead, often from car accidents or head injuries. These individuals usually agree to be organ donors before their deaths, but permission is also usually required from family members at the time of the donor's death. Once a donor heart has been selected, It is subjected to rigorous tests to make sure it's okay to use. A heart is usually taken from a donor who is younger than 65 and had no history of heart disease or serious chest injuries. Perhaps most important, the heart cannot have been exposed to hepatitis or HIV. A common misconception is that donors must be older than 18 to provide their organs. In fact, although minors cannot personally authorize use of their organs, parents can authorize it after their child's death. Since the first heart transplant was performed in 1967, the operation has become a fairly routine procedure. The surgery is carried out shortly after a suitable donor has been located, and doctors put the patient on a heart-lung machine before surgeons remove the heart. Except for the back walls of the atria, the back walls of the donor's heart are then removed, and the organ is sewn into the patient. Once all the blood vessels have been connected, the heart will begin to beat, and the patient can be removed from the heart-lung machine after doctors have checked for leaks. The entire procedure lasts between 4 and 10 hours. Due to the shortage of hearts that can be transplanted, scientists have been experimenting with the concept of preparing hearts to order with the ultimate goal of creating a heart in the box that can be readily stored in hospitals. How long can one live after a heart transplant? The immune system may reject the body's new organ because it is a foreign object and is not technically supposed to be there. Barring that, however, successful heart transplants can extend life by several years. Some 88% of patients will live a year after transplant surgery. 80% live at least 2 years. 75% will live for 5, and 56%, that's more than half, of patients will have their life extended by 10 years or more. However, survival rates are slightly lower in patients older than 65. Cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of death in the developing world. Heart transplantation is the only way to treat end-stage heart failure, highlighting the importance of developing techniques such as 3D printing. A team of Israeli scientists at Tel Aviv University used a 3D printer to create an entire human heart, a major medical achievement that could change the world of medicine by ending the reliance on donated organs. It has working cells, blood vessels, ventricles, and chambers. Researchers at Tel Aviv University managed to successfully print the first ever 3D heart that uses cells and biological materials from a patient. The medical breakthrough, which was published in Advanced Science, managed to produce an entire heart, complete with cells, blood vessels, ventricles, and chambers, a marked improvement over previous attempts that only printed simple tissues without vessels. Researchers have been working on 3D printed tissues for many years with the eventual goal of creating functioning organs for transplant. The scientists involved in the heart transplant at Tel Aviv University theorized that within 10 years, organ printers could be available at hospitals. This is the first time anyone, anywhere, has successfully engineered and printed an entire heart, replete with cells, blood, vessels, ventricles, and chambers. The team took fatty tissues from patients and reprogrammed some of it into stem cells. Those cells were then differentiating into cardiac and endothelial cells, which make up the lining of blood vessels, starting the process. The use of native human material is imperative to the successful creation of the tissues and organs. The world's first printed heart was made with actual human biological material. The cells and hydrogel were first used to create heart patches with blood vessels, and from there an entire heart. At this stage, the 3D heart is small, the size of the rabbit's heart, but larger human hearts require the same technology. Previously, scientists have been able to print only simple tissues without blood vessels. Using the patient's own cells is key to engineering the tissues and organs. The biocompatibility of engineered materials is crucial to eliminating the risk of implant rejection. Next, the researchers plan to train the hearts to behave like hearts. The cells need to form a pumping ability. They can currently contract, but it needs them to work together. The research team said the next step would be to train the printed heart to act like organic human hearts by transplanting them into animals and eventually humans. They hope that in the next 10 years, printers will be in hospitals around the world and the procedure will be, well, a routine practice. People have managed to 3D print the structure of a heart in the past, but not with cells and with blood vessels. The results demonstrate the potential of the approach to engineering personalized tissue and organ replacement in the future. Researchers noted that heart transplant are the only form of treatment for people with end-stage heart failure, and that many sick people die while waiting for a transplant, which can take 6 months or more. Last week, Benjamin Rockwell talked about software as a service from a pizza point of view. Well, today, he's going to give us a direct explanation, software as a service.
This is Benjamin Rockwell, and I'm here to give you some benefit from my experience as an IT professional for, oh yes, many years. This week, I want to drill down further in regards to something called software as a service and where you might be using it today. Now, if you recall back on a recent episode, we were talking about pizza as a service. This was all just an analog for software as a service, or the various items that are under that. For instance, we used to do it traditionally, where it was all on premises, and then we were able to outsource some of the different items, like just the infrastructure, and then the platform itself, or the software as a service. So we related that back to pizza. So Grandma used to be able to make the pizza. She did it in her own kitchen with her own oven and gas coming in, and she would make the pizza dough, the toppings, and then cook the pizza. We take it to the next level up where Grandma could have gone on out to a kitchen as a service. So she goes out to a public kitchen where a number of other people utilize the best in brand oven, the best in brand different utensils, and put together, yes, their own pizza dough, their own toppings, and then they cook their own pizza. And then we move into the next level of walk in and bake, which was, yes, the kitchen, the gas, the oven, and even the pizza dough is provided. All you have to do is put on the toppings and then cook the pizza. The last item was pizza as a service, where everything was provided, and then all you did was you requested the pizza and it would be delivered to you complete. So we have that all broken down there, and those are parallels to traditional on-premises servers, infrastructure as a service, that's your kitchen as a service, your platform as a service where you walk in and bake, or your software as a service, pizza as a service, that last item. So let's just worry about the most important item along the way, and that is software as a service. We all utilize, or most of us, utilize software as a service. This is where, instead of it being in-house, in your company or in your home, where somebody is managing everything, including your networking, your physical file server, your storage. There's something called virtualization, which allows for many different servers to be put on one physical piece of hardware. And basically, you have to have, with this, you also have to have somebody who's managing the operating system, the middleware, the runtime, the data, the applications. So everything is managed in-house. What if we could take all of that and we just outsource this? We just give this to somebody, let's say Google, and say, hey, all I want to do is I want to just go to a website and I want to run a version of Microsoft Word. Something similar to Microsoft Word. It doesn't have to be Microsoft Word. I will tell you real quick as a side note, Office 365, the web version, is exactly this. But we are also familiar with this with Google Docs. We're also familiar with this in some of the various other items that are out there. If you've used Dropbox, That is software as a service. It's storing everything for you. They are developing the application. They are developing all of the different software and hardware that needs to handle all of this. They're handling all of the data for you. There are other different items out there, many different software packages, whether we're talking about ERP programs, that's enterprise resource planning programs, which run the entire company. Something called Salesforce is out there. If you've ever done a conference call on a WebEx, that is all put together. It's all managed by the outside company. Yes, Cisco. And we go on and on through all of these different companies that do this, whether we're talking about GoToMeeting or Concur, or again, we go back to that basic, nice, simple idea of using Microsoft Word without you having to install that on your local system. When we're dealing with Office 365, you go to a website. As long as you can hit the website, and we're talking with any browser, with any computer. So somebody who's on a Mac could be running the same version of Word that you are identically. It's operating just like how you're doing it, even though you might be running Linux, even though you might be running Windows. It all operates the same way. Who is handling the networking? Microsoft. Who handles the storage? Microsoft. Who handles the servers? Microsoft. Virtualization, the operating system, the middleware, the runtime, even your data, even your applications, they're all storing that in the cloud. So anything that you hear as being part of as a service, whether it's infrastructure as a service, that platform as a service, or that software as a service, it's all cloud-based. And as we've said before, cloud is just another name for I'm using somebody else's servers. So hopefully that gives you a better idea of what you're seeing when somebody says software as a service or platform as a service. Platform as a service, they're doing everything but handling the applications and the data. Infrastructure as a service, very similar. Somebody's handling all of your hardware for you, but then you get to install whatever operating system you want, whatever software packages, and you get to store all of your data and your applications there too. So a number of different ways this all works out. Hopefully I've given you a little bit more insight into this. I know some of this is confusing, and that's okay. We're working on giving you just a little bit of information each time. This is Benjamin Rockwell. Back to you, Hank.
Thank you, Benjamin. People love the idea of being able to create all kinds of custom products as and when they need them. 3D printing gives us this capability and has been with us for a while, and it's been around for a lot longer than most people realize. 3D printing technology has begun to revolutionize the way we produce entire physical objects and parts. The range of things produced by 3D printing today is vast and continues to get more ambitious. We can print anything from simple toys to clothing to tools, and we can also use the technology to produce musical instruments and even human body parts. The best way to describe 3D printing is to look at how a regular inkjet printer works. First, we create the computerized file, whatever form that is in, and once our file is ready, we upload it to the printer via the computer, and then press the print. The printer then exudes or forces ink from a nozzle onto the paper. After a single print cycle, the end result is a two-dimensional representation of the digital file. 3D printing operates in a similar way. The main difference are with the materials used and the extra print cycles. With 3D printing, you also need to upload a digital file to the printer. You'll see these files referred to as 3D models, 3D computer graphics, CAD files, and more. Whatever they are, the 3D printer needs a file before it can print your design. 3D printing uses special types of ink known as filaments. These can range from thermoplastics to metals, glass, paper, wood, concrete, and even human substances. The other main difference is that 3D printing has to go through many print cycles, or layers, to produce a physical object. The print theories between inkjet and 3D are very similar. The most exciting thing about 3D printing today is that it's no longer the stuff of scientists, engineers, and scientific experiments. It's becoming popular because of the rising demand from interested consumers. The result is smaller, easier to operate machines at much lower costs. Hobbyists and enthusiasts can now buy budget and 3D printers for the price of a regular smartphone. Some even think we'll soon be 3D printing our own unique products on demand. Today we can trace the very first patent back to 1986. The patent belonged to an American inventor named Charles Chuck Hull. 3D printing first became popular back in the late 1980s. Its early popularity was among various industries. They liked it because it offered rapid prototyping of industrial products and designs. It proved to be quick and accurate, but it was also cost-effective. By the year 2008, the RepRap 3D printer was born. This open-source project helped to launch 3D printing into the spotlight. For the first time, people began to talk seriously about the potential of 3D technology. They could see that they had the power to create all kinds of things based on ideas. Just when you thought things could not get any better, things always do. At least this appears to be the case with 3D printing. The progress is so fast and so groundbreaking today. 3D printing is becoming more popular among the general public. Most people at least know what it is now and some of the things it's capable of. The cost has come down by thousands of dollars in recent years, and the technology has gotten better and continues to improve. But right now, the average person can't justify owning their own machines. But this is set to change in the years ahead. It's going to change because of the types of things we will be able to print in 3D in all kinds of different materials. Anyone who wants to explore 3D printing and experience the technology can do so. You don't need to own a 3D printer to be able to print in 3D. It's now possible to design your own 3D models using one of the free online 3D design programs. Once your model is ready, you can find a local or online service to print your 3D model for you. It's that easy. What materials can be used for 3D printing? In the beginning, it was ABS. Acrylon trifobutadiene styrene is another commonly used 3D printer material, best used for making durable parts that need to withstand higher temperature. In comparison to PLA filament, ABS plastic is less brittle and more ductile. It can also be post-processed with acetone to provide a glossy finish. Can 3D printers print metal? Yeah, of course. A 3D printer can use metals to print aluminum and titanium parts with direct metal laser sintering DMLS 3D printers. DMLS is not the only technology that lets you print metals. This time, we'll take a look at indirect metal printing, a process which is used for 3D printed steel. Can you make anything with a 3D printer? Yes, you can even print 3D printers with a 3D printer. With the advent of a 3D printer capable of printing itself, we've gone full cycle. The RepRap is an open-source printer that does just that. Can 3D printers use concrete? The printer creates the foundations and walls of the house or buildings, layer by layer. The ground is literally the printer's build plate. Some concrete 3D printers, however, are used to 3D print brick molds. First and foremost, a concrete 3D printer must be quite substantial in size. This is a major challenge that has somewhat hindered the mainstream adoption of concrete 3D printing. However, concrete 3D printers are usually portable, enabling construction in many locations using just one machine. Milestones in the use of building construction materials in 3D printing. A Chinese company in April 2014 3D printed 10 buildings in a day using construction waste. Chinese materials firm Yingchuan New Materials reportedly produced 10 3D printed buildings in 24 hours using a custom-built machine that output layers of construction waste mixed with cement. The company demonstrated the technology by producing 10 standalone houses in the space of a day, which will be used as offices at an industrial park in Shanghai. Each building has 3D printed walls and structure. The only sections not produced by the printer were the roofs. The company says this won't be possible until technology becomes more advanced. The process took place at the factory, where a 3D printing assembly line makes use of up to 4 printers at a time. This building also features 3D printed walls. They hope that one day 3D printers will be used to build skyscrapers, reusing materials from unwanted buildings. In October 2017, the world's first 3D printed concrete bridge opened in the Netherlands. The first 3D printed concrete bridge had been completed in the Netherlands as a crossing for cyclists. Made from prefabricated concrete blocks, 3D printed by robots, the 26-foot-long bridge forms part of a new road being constructed. It took 3 months for robots to print the 800 layers of pre-stressed, reinforced concrete in sections in the laboratory. The unique design uses less concrete than a traditional poured concrete bridge, making it a more sustainable construction process. In October of 2018, the world's first 3D printed steel bridge was unveiled. The Dutch robotics company MX3D completed the 3D printing of a 39-foot-long pedestrian steel bridge installed across a canal in Amsterdam. 6-axis robots built a 19-foot-wide structure from layers of molten steel, which involved programming robotic arms to control large-scale welding machines. The ambitious project has gone through several iterations in its development to strengthen the structure against boat collisions into the structure and to adhere to local council's regulations. The lightweight tree-like structure is built on 4 main bearers. The concern was that if one of those bearers got hit by a boat, the structure could critically fail. MX3D originally meant for the robots to print the bridge on site, beginning with the 4 structural bearings and working inwards. But the plan had to be abandoned because of budget restraints, and it was just too dangerous. And, as reported last year by Tech Insider, a 3D printed home was constructed in less than 24 hours at a cost of $10,000 with 3D printing. That's just for the house shell. A housing charity organization and Icon, a construction tech company, have partnered together. Their goal is to end global homelessness. The ultimate goal is to get costs down to $4,000 per house with a build time of less than 24 hours. An entire community of these 3D printed homes will be constructed in El Salvador. The prototype house was built in Austin, Texas. The home measures 650 square feet. Mortar was printed layer by layer. Icon staff will use the home as an office to test the durability. Icon's first product was a 3D printer that can print a home in 24 hours for half the cost. It is a proof of concept house. They printed the first home in the United States that's going to be permitted, and for them this is just the beginning. With the Vulcan 2 printer, they developed a 3D printing robotics, software, and advanced materials capable of 3D printing entire communities with up to 2,000 square foot homes. Using this technology, they can print a custom home and do it quicker with less waste and a lower cost than traditional home building methods. Just a few years ago, the idea of printing a body part seemed like the stuff of science fiction. It's now becoming a reality, and not just for high-tech research laboratories. Some amazing creations are now being made using readily available standard 3D printers. There is the bionic eye. Researchers at the University of Minnesota, Minneapolis, have 3D printed a prototype bionic eye. The device is an array of semiconductor photodetectors made of polymers printed on a glass hemisphere. Their research was recently published in Advanced Materials. Bionic eyes are usually thought of as science fiction, but now we are closer than ever using a multi-material 3D printer. The teams are now also searching for a way to print on a soft hemispherical material that can be implanted into a real eye. Researchers in Groningen, the Netherlands, have developed not just a 3D printed tooth, but one that kills bacteria. The tooth material is made from conventional artificial tooth resin combined with positively charged quaternary ammonium ions. When this material encounters the negatively charged membranes of bacteria, it kills the microbes. The trick was to get the mixture right to enable 3D printing and minimize any leakage of the antimicrobials. They tested both the tooth polymer and conventional artificial tooth resins in a saliva solution containing the bacteria in the mouth that contributes to tooth decay. The researchers found that 99% of the bacteria on the antibacterial polymer were killed, while only 1% were killed on the conventional material. Researchers in Canada have developed a handheld 3D printer that creates narrow sheets of skin tissue for covering and healing deep wounds. It's the first device that produces tissue that could revolutionize burn care, according to researchers, who published their findings in Lab on a Chip. Most current 3D bioprinters are bulky, low speed, expensive, and incompatible with clinical application. The skin printer promises to tailor tissues to specific patients and wound characteristics, and it's very portable. Weighing less than 1 kilogram or 2.2 pounds, the handheld bioprinter produces strips of bio ink made of collagen and fibrin. The process takes 2 minutes or less. The researchers plan to expand the size of the printed strips to cover large wounded areas, and with the ultimate goal of performing human clinical trials. Scientists at Princeton University, Princeton, New Jersey, have 3D printed a bionic ear that combines a small coil antenna with cartilage. The ear can hear radio frequencies far beyond the range of normal human capability. Using an off-the-shelf 3D printer, the scientists combined a matrix of hydrogel and bovine cells with silver nanoparticles that form the antenna. The calf cells later develop into cartilage. Electrical signals produced by the ear could be connected to a patient's nerve endings. This is the first time that 3D printing was effectively used for interweaving tissue with electronics. In principle, the bionic ear could be used to restore or enhance human hearing. However, the scientists caution that further work and testing still needs to be done before the technology can be used on patients. Bioengineers at Northwestern University in Chicago, Illinois, have 3D printed artificial hyperelastic bones that quickly induce bone regeneration and growth. The bone material is made mostly of a human bone mineral, along with a small percentage of a biocompatible, biodegradable polymer. The high concentration of human bone mineral and the bone's scaffold-like structure encourages rapid bone regeneration in the body. While the human bone mineral materials are brittle on their own, the 3D printed bone material is flexible thanks to the polymer. So far, the hyperelastic bones have been successfully implanted in animal models. An all-female team of scientists at Northwestern University, Feinberg School of Medicine, and its McCormick School of Engineering in Evanston, Illinois, have created functioning 3D printed ovaries. The bioprosthetic ovaries were implanted in sterilized mice, which were able to ovulate and birth live pups. The researchers documented their findings in a study published in Nature Communications. The 3D printed ovaries were made of gelatin, a biological hydrogel derived from collagen, which is abundant in both human and mouse ovaries. Also, as the researchers found, the design of the scaffold within the ovary was vitally important. This study was the first to demonstrate that scaffold architecture made a difference in the survival. The scientists' sole objective for developing the bioprosthetic ovaries was to help restore fertility and hormone production in those who've had cancer and may be experiencing diminished ovarian function. And then, as reported earlier, Tel Aviv University has been able to 3D print an entire heart replete with cells, blood vessels, ventricles, and chambers. Creating organ structures that function and restore the health of reproductive organs is the holy grail of bioengineering for regenerative medicine. Marty Winston's segment this week is April showers bring May flowers, but Marty's still thinking about snow showers and snowstorms and ice.
As I hear it, it turns out that pickle juice on the rocks and sugar beet juice on the rocks can both be really hard to pull off, which could make it time for one for the road. Or both, or some of the byproducts of brewing beer. These things are all serious contenders for keeping highways less slippery at temperatures where road salt alone can no longer stop ice from forming. Well, they're almost useless, though, when it comes to clearing snow. To be fair, I should have included the word brine because it's in a mix with road salt and water that these concoctions prove effective. They can depress the freezing point of water by tens of degrees beyond what salt can do alone, while creating less damage to the roadway and less damage to the underside of your car. Some of these potions look and even smell unusual, but they do work. Remember what I said about not clearing the snow? That's true. Highway departments that are using beet juice brine sprays are doing it from the backs of trucks with snowplow blades up front. So just to be clear, let me slide briefly into the subject of clearing snow, beginning with an illustration of one fellow's ill-advised approach to it. This was reported to me by an old pal during one of our frequent phone chats. He had just shoveled his drive and gone back inside. Later, a few minutes later, he looked out his front window and saw his across-the-street neighbor trying to clear his drive. Only the neighbor wasn't using a snow shovel or a snow blower. Instead, he was armed with his leaf blower. He would point the leaf blower at the snow on the drive. The force of that wind from the leaf blower would billow the snow up into a big swirling puff, and then that snow would fall right back down onto the driveway and all over him. This segment won't be about clearing snow, not with shovels, not with snow blowers, not with leaf blowers, not with flamethrowers. Consider any discussion of snow removal to be on ice, which is exactly where our attention will be. Let's focus on the beet juice brine mix. Beet juice is extracted from the leftover mass of commercial sugar beet processing. It's a waste product, so it's inexpensive. It gets added to a salt brine in a concentration of 25% or better. The mix is less corrosive than salt alone, so as I said, it does less damage to roadway pavement, less damage to the metals in cars and trucks that travel those roadways. And as anybody who's ever salted a driveway or a walk can tell you, the less salt used the better, because as snow melts, it carries the salt to the surrounding lawns, which do not soon recover their intended plush green beauty. So, yes, the beet sugars, like salt, help disrupt the molecular bonding that freezes water into ice, pushing the freezing point, again, tens of degrees below 32 degrees Fahrenheit, nearer zero, often lower. But something else is also happening. The sugar's stickiness also helps keep the suspended salt crystals from lifting off the pavement or running off the roadway with fluids or melts, which reduces that road salt impact on groundwater or nearby streams or grasses. So when temperatures drop, road crews will often apply the beet juice brine mix onto cleared roads as a preventive measure against ice forming. Can you do that at home? I haven't tested any of them, but there are several consumer products and several recipes online for do-it-yourself alternatives. Just keep in mind that you haven't undergone beet juice training, if there is such a thing, so you're a novice at it, and you'll be working with unfamiliar products. Yes, there is a so what to this. Whether because of the manufacturer's misdirected inventiveness or your own heavy hand in deploying those products, you can end up accelerating damage to your driveway, to your walk, to your lawn, to your car or truck, especially the undersides. Those sugars also make the pavement sticky to walk on. And the highway beet juice brine blends, we're told, have an odor, Remember, if it's nice, it's an aroma. If it's not so nice, it's an odor. They have an odor that's been compared to the flavor of a Tootsie Roll on steroids. An inescapable big odor. Hey, I like Tootsie Rolls, but I don't think I'd want to try breathing through one. I mentioned pickle juice, which I'll guess really means some of the pickling brine that pickle processing plants dispose of when pickling. I don't have any firm data on this, but if beet juice leaves the roadways smelling like Tootsie Rolls, maybe the pickle juice leaves it smelling like garlic and vinegar and dill. As you're driving, if you suddenly feel that you can't wait to make it to a deli, maybe they're using pickle juice on that road. The choice probably has to do with what's getting processed nearby and what's getting discarded nearby. Beet juice around sugar beet processing plants, pickle juice around pickle processing plants. Hey, don't try saying that too many times too quickly. Pickle processing plants. I love the idea of finding productive uses for what otherwise would be industrial waste, but the practice is not yet decades old, so we can't really know whether there may be some long-term effects on the horizon. So yeah, it's probably a good thing to never fully trust the latest ice-clearing techniques and always drive like the road is a ribbon-shaped ice skating rink. Also, this is just a footnote, sugars are favorite foods of microorganisms. If too much of a beet juice brine mix gets into creeks or ponds, for example, they could get swamped with microorganism blooms, and the sudden prosperity of those growing can throw that ecosystem out of whack. Think of it this way. Nature seeks a balance, and when man makes that balance impossible, nature can turn all unnatural. Okay, I think we now understand some of the reasons that roads may be smelly in new ways. I have a hunch that some of you will want to pass on the story of the guy who tried clearing the snow off his driveway with a leaf blower, an epic fail, and I know everybody's happy not to have to deal right now with ice on the roadways as a current event. Next time, I'll talk about fighting chalk scale and lime scale and conditioning water without using salt. Hey, salt and lime. Anybody bring tequila?
Thank you, Marty. Public service announcements. Computer Club meetings in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut tri-state region. The computer clubs have random access sessions at each of these club meetings. If you have any questions or need for technical advice, the club members are more than happy to assist. There is no such thing as a dumb question. The Princeton PC Users Group has a meeting on Tuesday, April the 23rd. Meeting time is 7 p.m., and they meet at the Mercer County Library in Lawrenceville, New Jersey. Brookdale Computer Users Group will have a presentation on Wi-Fi 6, IEEE Standard 802.11ax. What the future holds. Thursday, April the 25th. They meet in the Middletown Library Lodge Meeting Room at 55 New Monmouth Road in Middletown, New Jersey. The Westchester PC Users Group has a meeting on Thursday, May the 2nd. Meeting time is 7 p.m., and they meet at the Keller Williams Realty, 120 Bloomingdale Road in White Plains, New York. The Amateur Computer Group of New Jersey has their general meeting on Friday, May the 3rd. Meeting time is 8 p.m., and they meet at the Scotch Plains Rescue Squad, 1916 Bartle Avenue, Scotch Plains, New Jersey. The Danbury Area Computer Society meets on Tuesday, May the 7th. They meet at 7:30 p.m., and their general meeting will be held at the Danbury Hacker Space at 158 Main Street in Danbury, Connecticut. The New York Amateur Computer Club has their general meeting on Thursday, May 9th at 7 p.m., and it's held at NYU 32 Waverly Place in the Silver Building, and that's in Manhattan, New York. The Long Island Macintosh Users Group has their meeting on Friday, May 10th. Meeting time is 7 p.m., and they meet at the Harry J. Scher Hall, New York Institute of Technology, Old Westbury Campus out in Old Westbury, New York. Computer Learning Center at Ewing will have a presentation on Appleseed's Apple devices Tuesday, May the 14th. Meeting time is 2 p.m., and they meet at the Ewing Senior and Community Center at 999 Lower Ferry Road in Ewing, New Jersey. The Kings Bite Computer Club has their meeting on Tuesday, May the 14th at 7 p.m., and they meet at the Park Plaza Restaurant at 220 Cadman Plaza West in Brooklyn, New York. If you have a computer club meeting you want me to announce on the air, send me a note. My address is hank@pcradioshow.org. Our website is pcradioshow.org. We can be heard each Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on prn.fm, on the Internet, and podcasts are available from all major pod hosting sites, as well as on our website, pcradioshow.org. If you have any questions for us or commentary on any of our feature segments, just send us your email address with your telephone number, in which we can call you at a convenient hour for playback on the program. If you have any questions for us, just send us an email addressed to hank@pcradioshow.org. There is no such thing as a stupid question. In the meantime, stay in touch and keep on computing, and remember to back up. I'm Hank Key, and on behalf of Joe King and Michael Horowitz, we thank you for listening. Stay safe and healthy until we meet again, same time, same station next week.